Ladies and gentlemen, let's get something clear right out of the gate. A hi, Val. You woman is not someone with a certain look, lifestyle, or relationship status. She is someone who walks into a room and owns her presence. She doesn't need to dominate anyone, but she will never be dominated, and the way she talks to men, that's where the real power lies. A hi. Val, you woman doesn't shrink when a man enters the room, she expands. She doesn't get quieter to make him feel bigger. She gets clearer, more direct, and more grounded in who she is. You know what she does. She speaks like she means it. She doesn't raise her voice. She raises her standard. Because here's the truth. Confidence isn't loud, it's consistent. And Hive, Al, you women don't talk to men to be liked. They talk to be understood. They talk to be respected. They talk to be heard. She doesn't flirt her way into being treated well. She expects to be treated well, and if she's not, she leaves, not because she's angry, not because she's punishing anyone, but because she values herself too much to stay where she's not seen or heard. You want to know how a high, Val, you woman talks to men. She uses phrases like, that doesn't work for me. I'm not available for that. I don't do drama. Here's what I need. I'll let you know. She doesn't beg for time, for attention, or for love. She knows love isn't something you force. It's something that flows when there's respect and alignment. And let's talk about tone. A hi, Val, you woman speaks with calm authority. She doesn't need to raise her voice to be powerful. She knows that the quietest words can carry the loudest weight when spoken with self-respect. She doesn't ask for permission to feel how she feels. She owns it. She says, I feel uncomfortable with that, or that didn't land well with me. Not because she's being emotional, but because she's being honest. There's nothing more powerful than a woman who owns her truth with grace. When a hi, Val, you woman is challenged, she doesn't crumble. She doesn't engage in power struggles or emotional games. She pauses, she thinks, she speaks with intention, not reaction. She understands that sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Silence is a tool for women who know their worth. She doesn't explain herself endlessly. She doesn't justify her no. She doesn't chase closure. She gives it to herself. And when a man tries to test her boundaries, she doesn't take it personally. She simply reinforces them, not with rage, but with repetition. That's not okay with me, period. Not that's not okay with me because I had a rough day and you need to understand. No, just that's not okay with me. And here's the kicker. She doesn't need every man to like her. She doesn't see rejection as a failure. She sees it as a filter. She knows that who walks away is just as important as who stays. This isn't about being cold. This is about being clear. Hi, Val, you women are warm, kind, generous. But they never confuse those traits with being available to everyone. Being kind doesn't mean being a doormat. Being feminine doesn't mean being passive. She will support but not save. She will love but not lose herself. She will connect but never at the cost of her core. So if you want to embody this, start with your words. Speak with truth, not performance. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If it's a no, say no. If it's a boundary, set it. If it's love, give it from fullness, not emptiness. Talk like someone who has your own back. Like someone who doesn't need to be chosen to feel worthy. Like someone who already is the prize, because let's be real. When you walk in that energy, the right people rise to meet you, and the wrong ones, they fall away, silently and swiftly. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what a hive, Al, you woman wants. She knows her value isn't something she earns through attention or approval. It's something she claims through how she chooses to show up in every moment. A hi, Val, you woman isn't defined by status or beauty or the opinions of others. She's defined by how she holds herself. It's in the way she walks into a room, how she sets the tone for every interaction, and how she honors herself when no one's watching. She doesn't ask, am I enough for him? She asks, is he enough for the life I'm building? That's the shift. That's the energy. She's not trying to prove she deserves to be chosen. She knows she's already the prize. And that mindset, it doesn't make her arrogant, it makes her powerful. Because when you know your worth, you stop negotiating with people who never intended to meet your standards in the first place. It starts with how she talks to herself. Every thought, every self-conversation. She doesn't allow the inner critic to run the show. She speaks to herself with the same respect she expects from others. I am worthy. I am allowed to take up space. I don't have to be perfect to be powerful. That's her self-dialogue. It's intentional. And it's non-negotiable because the way she speaks to herself becomes the filter for how she lets others speak to her. When she walks into a conversation with a man, she's not performing. She's not pretending to be chill if she's bothered. She's not laughing at jokes that cross lines just to keep the peace. She's not sitting in silence to avoid conflict. She owns her truth. If something feels off, she says it. If something isn't aligned, she walks. She's not rude, she's real. There's a difference. She doesn't chase, not because she's playing hard to get, but because she understands that real connection doesn't require chasing. It requires alignment. And alignment can't happen if she's constantly bending, shrinking, or diluting herself to be more palatable. She's not in the business of being tolerated. She's here to be met fully, and if a man can't meet her there, she won't beg for breadcrumbs just to feel wanted. That's what makes her dangerous in the most beautiful way. She's kind but not a pushover. She's soft but not weak. She'll open her heart but not abandon herself in the process. She's clear on this. If I have to lose myself to keep you, then I don't want you. That's not bitterness. That's boundaries, and she doesn't argue with people committed to misunderstanding her. She doesn't explain herself to people who aren't even listening. She knows that silence is sometimes louder than explanation. She understands that energy doesn't lie. If a man is inconsistent, unclear, unavailable, she doesn't spiral. She observes, she decides, she moves on, she trusts herself. That's the root. She doesn't second, guess her intuition because someone calls her too much or too sensitive. She doesn't internalize someone's lack of capacity as proof she's unworthy. She knows that some people just aren't equipped to meet her at the level she's operating at, and that's not her fault or her problem. And here's the thing, she's not afraid of being alone. She'd rather be at peace by herself than in chaos with someone else. She understands that solitude isn't a punishment, it's a gift. It's space to grow, to ground, to reconnect with her power. And because she doesn't fear being alone, she doesn't stay in places she's outgrown. When she speaks to a man, she speaks with clarity. She doesn't drop hints. She doesn't manipulate. She says what she means. She sets expectations. She honors her boundaries, and if that's too much for him, then he's not her person. She's not interested in babysitting egos or fixing broken men. She's not here to prove she's worthy of love. She is love. She brings love, and the man who gets to experience that, he'll be the one who's ready for it. She leads with standards, not desperation, with dignity, not desperation. She doesn't need to be anyone's option. She's already chosen herself. And that's what makes her magnetic, not because she's perfect, not because she's trying, but because she's whole. So she doesn't entertain men who breadcrumb her just enough to keep her close, but never enough to commit. She doesn't play games. She doesn't beg for clarity. If you're confused about her, she'll remove herself. That's her clarity. Every word she speaks is rooted in truth. Not performance, not fear, just truth. Because she knows that the right people will never be threatened by her power, they'll be inspired by it. That's how you women talk to men, not with ego, not with aggression, but with unwavering self-respect. And that, more than anything else, teaches the world how to treat them. Val, You woman understands that communication is not just about words, it's about presence, energy, tone, and intention. She knows that every time she speaks, she is teaching people how to engage with her. She is not careless with her words, nor is she passive about how others speak to her. She sets the tone by being the tone. She doesn't have to raise her voice to be heard. Her calm clarity speaks volumes. When she talks to a man, she listens not just to respond, but to understand. And when she responds, she is deliberate. She doesn't sugarcoat to avoid discomfort, nor does she exaggerate to gain control. Her communication is clean, honest, and rooted in respect, for herself first, and then for others. She doesn't say things she doesn't mean. She doesn't make passive-aggressive remarks. She doesn't leave people guessing what's really going on. If something doesn't feel right, she addresses it directly. That comment felt off to me. Can we have a conversation about that? She doesn't need a dramatic confrontation to assert herself. She simply speaks her truth and invites clarity. She understands that avoidance creates anxiety, while honesty creates freedom. So she leads with honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, because she values peace over pretending. Hi, Val. You woman understands that boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. She doesn't build barriers to keep people out. She defines limits to ensure that the people she lets in are aligned with the standards she's worked hard to establish, and her boundaries are communicated clearly and calmly. Not with ultimatums, not with guilt, but with certainty. That doesn't work for me. I'm not okay with that. She doesn't expect people to read her mind. She uses her voice, and if someone consistently violates those boundaries, she doesn't repeat herself endlessly. She lets her actions speak. She removes herself. She also knows that how someone communicates under pressure reveals who they really are. So she watches. She pays attention to how a man reacts when she says no. Does he listen or dismiss? Does he get defensive or stay grounded? Does he honor her boundary or try to push past it? She's not fooled by charm. She's focused on consistency. She's not seduced by words. She's measuring behavior. And she doesn't engage in communication that costs her peace. If a man plays games, sends mixed signals, or disappears and reappears like a magician, she doesn't chase clarity. She is clarity. She will ask once, maybe twice. After that, his silence is an answer. She doesn't cling to conversations that go nowhere. She doesn't argue to be right. She disengages to protect her peace because her energy is valuable. Her time is valuable, and she won't waste it trying to fix a connection that's fundamentally broken. When she expresses herself, she's rooted in self-respect, not blame, not shame. She says, I feel, instead of you always. She owns her experience without projecting it onto someone else. She understands that vulnerability is not weakness, it's strength, but she's also discerning. She doesn't overexpose her heart to people who haven't earned her trust. She communicates with openness, but she doesn't confuse oversharing with intimacy. And when a man tries to test her limits emotionally, verbally, or energetically, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't stoop. She doesn't react impulsively. She responds intentionally. She might say, that tone isn't okay with me, or let's continue this when we're both calm. She never lets herself get pulled into chaos just to prove a point. She rises above because that's what self-respect looks like. She also communicates her standards before they need to be enforced. She doesn't wait until things fall apart to start asking for what she needs. She sets expectations early. I value direct communication. I don't play games. I appreciate consistency. She doesn't do this to scare anyone away. She does it to create alignment. Because if someone can't respect the standard, they shouldn't be in her space. And here's the truth. The way she talks to herself mirrors the way she talks to others. She practices compassion without coddling, accountability without criticism. When she makes a mistake, she doesn't spiral. She learns. When she doubts herself, she doesn't drown. She grounds. She speaks to herself with the same clarity, care, and power that she brings into every conversation. Her communication is a reflection of her emotional maturity. She knows that her tone can calm or escalate, her words can build or break, her silence can empower or confuse, so she chooses wisely. She speaks from the highest version of herself, the version that isn't desperate to be liked, but committed to being understood. And if she's misunderstood, she doesn't lose sleep over it. She clarifies when needed, but she doesn't defend herself to people committed to misreading her. She knows her truth, she stands in it, and her peace is not up for negotiation. Because in the end, communication is more than what you say. It's how you say it, why you say it, and what you're willing to accept in return. Hi, Val. You woman doesn't just communicate to connect. She communicates to protect her energy, to maintain her standards, and to create relationships that reflect the respect she has for herself. That's the language of a woman who knows her worth. Hi, Val. You woman understands that communication is not just about words, it's about presence, energy, tone, and intention. She knows that every time she speaks, she is teaching people how to engage with her. She is not careless with her words, nor is she passive about how others speak to her. She sets the tone by being the tone. She doesn't have to raise her voice to be heard. Her calm clarity speaks volumes. When she talks to a man, she listens not just to respond, but to understand, and when she responds, she is deliberate. She doesn't sugarcoat to avoid discomfort, nor does she exaggerate to gain control. Her communication is clean, honest, and rooted in respect. For herself first, and then for others. She doesn't say things she doesn't mean. She doesn't make passive-aggressive remarks. She doesn't leave people guessing what's really going on. If something doesn't feel right, she addresses it directly. That comment felt off to me. Can we have a conversation about that? She doesn't need a dramatic confrontation to assert herself. She simply speaks her truth and invites clarity. She understands that avoidance creates anxiety while honesty creates freedom. So she leads with honesty, even when it's uncomfortable, because she values peace over pretending. Hi, Val, you woman understands that boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. She doesn't build barriers to keep people out. She defines limits to ensure that the people she lets in are aligned with the standards she's worked hard to establish. And her boundaries are communicated clearly and calmly. Not with ultimatums, not with guilt, but with certainty. That doesn't work for me. I'm not okay with that. She doesn't expect people to read her mind. She uses her voice, and if someone consistently violates those boundaries, she doesn't repeat herself endlessly. She lets her actions speak. She removes herself. She also knows that how someone communicates under pressure reveals who they really are, so she watches. She pays attention to how a man reacts when she says no. Does he listen or dismiss? Does he get defensive or stay grounded? Does he honor her boundary or try to push past it? She's not fooled by charm. She's focused on consistency. She's not seduced by words. She's measuring behavior. And she doesn't engage in communication that costs her peace. If a man plays games, sends mixed signals, or disappears and reappears like a magician, she doesn't chase clarity. She is clarity. She will ask once, maybe twice. After that, his silence is an answer. She doesn't cling to conversations that go nowhere. She doesn't argue to be right. She disengages to protect her peace because her energy is valuable. Her time is valuable, and she won't waste it trying to fix a connection that's fundamentally broken. When she expresses herself, she's rooted in self-respect, not blame, not shame. She says, I feel, instead of you always. She owns her experience without projecting it onto someone else. She understands that vulnerability is not weakness, it's strength, but she's also discerning. She doesn't overexpose her heart to people who haven't earned her trust. She communicates with openness, but she doesn't confuse oversharing with intimacy. And when a man tries to test her limits emotionally, verbally, or energetically, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't stoop. She doesn't react impulsively. She responds intentionally. She might say, that tone isn't okay with me, or let's continue this when we're both calm. She never lets herself get pulled into chaos just to prove a point. She rises above because that's what self-respect looks like. She also communicates her standards before they need to be enforced. She doesn't wait until things fall apart to start asking for what she needs. She sets expectations early. I value direct communication. I don't play games. I appreciate consistency. She doesn't do this to scare anyone away. She does it to create alignment. Because if someone can't respect the standard, they shouldn't be in her space. And here's the truth. The way she talks to herself mirrors the way she talks to others. She practices compassion without coddling, accountability without criticism. When she makes a mistake, she doesn't spiral. She learns. When she doubts herself, she doesn't drown. She grounds. She speaks to herself with the same clarity, care, and power that she brings into every conversation. Her communication is a reflection of her emotional maturity. She knows that her tone can calm or escalate, her words can build or break, her silence can empower or confuse, so she chooses wisely. She speaks from the highest version of herself, the version that isn't desperate to be liked, but committed to being understood. And if she's misunderstood, she doesn't lose sleep over it. She clarifies when needed, but she doesn't defend herself to people committed to misreading her. She knows her truth. She stands in it, and her peace is not up for negotiation. Because in the end, communication is more than what you say. It's how you say it, why you say it, and what you're willing to accept in return. Hi, Val. You woman doesn't just communicate to connect. She communicates to protect her energy, to maintain her standards, and to create relationships that reflect the respect she has for herself. That's the language of a woman who knows her worth. She doesn't settle, not for breadcrumbs, not for potential, not for maybe he'll change. Hi, Val. You woman has learned, often the hard way, that settling is the fastest way to forget who you are. Because every time you choose less than you deserve, you start believing you don't deserve more. And that's the real danger. It's not just about the guy who's inconsistent or unavailable or emotionally immature. It's about what staying with him does to you. She's done with convincing someone to see her worth. She doesn't show up with her heart in her hands begging for someone to treat it right. She doesn't fall in love with red flags and then call it passion. She's not interested in fixing, mothering, or waiting around for someone to finally get it. She's interested in alignment, mutual growth, and partnership. And if a man can't meet her there, she blesses him and moves on. No bitterness, no drama, just clarity. She's been through enough to know the difference between chemistry and compatibility, between excitement and emotional safety, between attention and genuine interest, and she's not afraid to walk away from something that looks good but feels wrong. Her nervous system doesn't lie. If she has to question her value, her place in his life, or where things are going every week, she's not interested. That's what makes her dangerous to the people who thrive on power games, because she doesn't engage. She doesn't cling, she doesn't ask twice. If he's not consistent, she's not available. If he's not clear, she's not guessing. If he's not respecting her time, energy, and effort, she's not negotiating her standards just to keep the connection alive. She knows anything that requires you to abandon yourself to keep it will eventually destroy you. She doesn't fear letting go. She fears losing herself in something that doesn't reflect her worth. That's the shift. She's not asking, will he choose me? She's asking, will staying in this relationship cause me to shrink? And if the answer is yes, she chooses herself, even if it's painful, especially if it's painful. Because the longer you hold on to the wrong thing, the longer you delay what's truly meant for you. Hi, Val, you woman doesn't fall for potential anymore. She knows that potential is just an illusion unless it's matched with action. She doesn't make excuses for inconsistency. She doesn't confuse effort with proximity, but he texts every day, "Okay, but is he building with you? Is he showing up when it matters? Is he honoring your values, not just flattering your ego?" She doesn't measure interest by how often someone checks in. She measures it by how aligned they are with the future she's building, and she understands that love isn't enough. There has to be respect. There has to be alignment. There has to be action, because love without consistency is chaos. Love without boundaries is self-abandonment. Love without honesty is a lie dressed in romance. She's not here for love that hurts, drains, or confuses her. She's here for love that mirrors her wholeness. She's not afraid to be alone because she's made peace with herself. She knows that her solitude is sacred, and she protects it fiercely. So if someone wants access to her energy, they better come correct. She's not giving time to men who don't know what they want. She's not entertaining connections that make her question herself more than they ground her. When she meets someone new, she doesn't lose herself in the fantasy. She observes, she listens, she stays grounded in reality, because she's learned that most heartbreak doesn't come from what someone did. It comes from ignoring who they really were. She's not trying to see the good. She's looking at the facts. Does his life align with his words? Does he respect her boundaries? Does he bring peace? Or does she always feel like she's not enough? And she doesn't try to prove her value. She embodies it. That means she doesn't go out of her way to impress. She doesn't bend her schedule, dim her light, or tolerate bad behavior just to be chosen. She knows she's already the prize, and the right man won't need to be convinced. He'll recognize it. He'll match it. He'll rise to it. She also doesn't hold on to resentment. If something doesn't work out, she grieves, she learns, and she lets it go. She doesn't chase closure from people who never gave her clarity in the first place. She creates her own closure by accepting what is, not clinging to what could have been. Her healing doesn't depend on someone else's apology. It begins the moment she chooses herself over the chaos, and she isn't afraid to demand more. Not because she's entitled, but because she's done settling. She's done shrinking to be digestible. She's done accepting the bare minimum with a grateful heart. She's not angry, she's clear. She's not cold, she's focused. And the man who gets to walk beside her will be someone who understands that being with her is a privilege, not a convenience. Because once a woman realizes her value, there's no turning back. She stops settling for less because she knows that she is not less. She is not desperate, not replaceable, not optional. She is the standard, and any relationship that requires her to forget that isn't love, it's a lesson, and she's already learned it. A high-value woman understands the immense power of silence. Not the kind used to punish or manipulate, but the kind that reflects strength, discernment, and peace. She knows that not everything deserves a response. She knows that sometimes the most powerful thing she can do is not react. Not argue, not defend, not chase, just pause. She's mastered the art of holding space for herself. When something triggers her, when a situation threatens to pull her into chaos, she doesn't spiral. She centers, she breathes, she listens inward. She doesn't let emotions dictate her behavior, but she also doesn't suppress them. She feels them, learns from them, and then responds with intention, not impulse. Because emotional intelligence isn't about denying how you feel. It's about directing how you move through those feelings. She doesn't need to win every argument. She doesn't fight to be right. She chooses peace over pride. That doesn't mean she lets people walk over her. It means she walks away from what compromises her inner calm. She understands that her energy is sacred, and not everyone is entitled to access it. So when someone disrespects her, dismisses her, or disrupts her peace, she doesn't lash out. She lets go. Her silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. When someone plays games, ghosts, or gaslights her, she doesn't write essays, send angry texts, or beg for explanations. She sees it for what it is. She feels the sting, and then she detaches, because she's learned that people reveal themselves quickly, and once they do, she believes them. No need to dig, decode, or debate. She doesn't try to change someone's mind about her. She lets their actions speak, then she exits quietly and completely. She's not in the business of proving her worth. She's in the business of protecting her peace. And sometimes that means saying less and observing more. Sometimes that means sitting in silence until the noise fades and clarity rises. She's okay with stillness because she trusts that everything she needs to know will be revealed in time, without force, without drama. This woman has walked through fire. She's learned the cost of over-explaining, over-giving, and over-committing. She's felt the exhaustion of being too available to people who didn't value her presence. She suffered from saying yes when her whole body was screaming no, and now she chooses differently. Now she listens before she speaks. Now she waits before she reacts. Now she pauses before she pours into anyone. Because her silence is her filter, and not everyone makes it through, she's also mastered the art of not responding to disrespect. That doesn't mean she accepts it. It means she removes herself from it. She's not here to argue with people committed to misunderstanding her. She's not here to justify her standards to people who benefit from her self-abandonment. She knows who she is, what she stands for, and what she's no longer available for. And if someone doesn't align with that, she lets her absence speak volumes. Her boundaries are clear, but they're not loud. She doesn't need to announce her standards to the world. She simply lives them. She walks in them. She upholds them consistently. And if someone crosses a line, she doesn't explode. She exits, because for her, the greatest form of self-respect isn't confrontation. It's elevation. It's choosing not to engage with what lowers her frequency. Even in love, she lets silence work for her. If a man is inconsistent, she doesn't chase clarity. She is clarity. She doesn't need to hear excuses. She doesn't ask for closure from someone who never gave her clarity in the first place. She gives herself permission to walk away, not because she doesn't care, but because she does about herself. In conversations, she listens more than she speaks. Not because she's timid, but because she's intentional. She pays attention to what people say, how they say it, and what they don't say. She hears between the lines. She picks up on tone, energy, patterns. And if something doesn't sit right, she doesn't override her intuition. She honors it. She's not cold. She's composed. She's not passive. She's powerful, and she doesn't need to dominate a room to own it. Her presence does that. Her peace does that. Her stillness radiates confidence in a world that constantly demands noise. And let's be real, this didn't happen overnight. She wasn't always this grounded. There were seasons when she overreacted, over-explained, overextended. There were years when silence felt scary, like rejection, like abandonment, but she learned, she evolved, and now she understands her silence is not absence, it's alignment. It's not avoidance, it's ascension, because not everything needs a response. Some things just need distance. Not every conflict deserves a comeback. Some just need closure, and not every person who knocks at her door gets to enter. Some are best left outside, where their energy belongs. This is what makes her high. Not her looks, not her lifestyle, not her resume, her discernment. Her ability to remain grounded in a world designed to keep her reactive. Her choice to respond with grace, not ego. Her decision to let silence be the shield that protects her peace, her power, and her purpose. She is the calm in the storm, the quiet strength in a loud world. And she knows the most powerful voice is the one that speaks with intention, or not at all. She doesn't waste her time waiting for someone to pick her. She picks herself every single day. That's the mindset of a hive. You woman. She's not sitting around wondering if she's good enough for him. She's out here becoming the best version of herself for asterisk her asterisk. Because she knows the truth, when you choose yourself first, the right people will either align or eliminate themselves, and either way, you win. There's a shift that happens when a woman decides she is no longer available for situations that don't serve her. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. She starts asking different questions. How do I feel when I'm with him? Does this connection honor my values? Do I trust myself around this person? If the answers make her doubt, shrink, or question her worth, she doesn't beg for change. She walks away, and not with drama, but with direction. Choosing yourself isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about being deeply connected to your worth, your needs, and your non-negotiables. It's about no longer outsourcing your identity to someone else's approval. Because she knows this, waiting for someone to validate you is the quickest way to lose yourself. And she's done doing that. She's made the mistake of abandoning herself before, of twisting herself into someone more likable, more convenient, more tolerable. She's played small to keep people comfortable. She's watered herself down to avoid rejection, but now she knows better. She knows that every time you silence your truth to keep someone in your life, you betray the very essence of who you are. And that's a price she's no longer willing to pay. She's not afraid of being alone because her own company is fulfilling. She's not chasing temporary highs from attention or validation. She's building a life that feels good on the inside, not just looks good on the outside. Her peace is her priority, and if that means spending time alone to protect her energy, so be it. Because she understands, being alone is never the problem. Settling for less than you deserve just to avoid loneliness, asterisk, is asterisk. She pours into herself without apology. She invests in her growth, her healing, her passions. She sets goals that excite her, not just impress others. She takes herself on dates. She keeps promises to herself. She shows up for her future self like she's already her best friend. And the more she honors her own needs, the less attracted she is to anything that diminishes them. And let's be clear, choosing yourself isn't always easy. Sometimes it means leaving relationships you still love. Sometimes it means disappointing people who expect the old version of you. Sometimes it means walking away from familiarity to pursue alignment. But she's brave enough to do it anyway, because comfort zones never raised queens. She doesn't compete. She doesn't compare. She doesn't ask, why her and not me? Because she knows her lane. She knows her timing. She knows that what's meant for her won't pass her by, and she celebrates other women because she's not threatened by them. She's inspired. That's the power of someone who's rooted in their worth. She knows that there's room for all of us to rise. She also knows how to protect her peace from emotional chaos. She's not giving access to people who drain her. She's not entertaining inconsistency. She's not trying to fix people who don't want to grow. She's not playing therapist to men who refuse to do their own inner work. She's not confusing emotional labor with love. Her energy is sacred, and she gives it intentionally. She's learned to love herself in the quiet moments, to comfort herself through heartbreak, to motivate herself when no one's watching. She's not waiting for a savior. She's her own rescue plan, and because of that, she doesn't tolerate relationships that feel like a rescue mission. She wants partnership, not projects, every time she chooses herself. By walking away, by setting a boundary, by speaking her truth, she becomes more magnetic. Not because she's trying to attract anyone, but because she's fully aligned with who she is. Confidence isn't loud or performative. It's the calm knowing that you're good with who you are, with or without external validation. And if a man steps into her life, he's not there to complete her. He's there to asterisk complement, asterisk the whole woman she already is. She's not bending to fit someone's mold. She's not chasing a fairy tale. She's building a real, honest life rooted in self, love, purpose, and peace. And anyone who wants to be part of that life must bring the same level of emotional responsibility, respect, and clarity. Because here's what she knows now: when you choose yourself, you teach the world how to treat you. When you stop settling, you start receiving. When you stop begging, you start attracting. When you stop trying to fit into other people's stories, you finally start writing your own. She doesn't pick herself once. She picks herself every morning when she gets up with intention, every night when she puts her peace before performance, every time she says, "No, that's not for me," every time she refuses to settle, every time she chooses healing over habit, growth over comfort, alignment over attachment. And that's what makes her unstoppable.